is the beginning. I cut up about 3.5 pounds of zucchini and yellow squash and about 4 pounds, it ended up being about 3 large onions. And you don't have to be very precise about the cut because you're going to put them in the food processor later. So right now what we're going to do is add 1/2 cup of pickling salt, canning salt, and I'm just going to rub it in and then let it sit for a few hours. And make sure you get it all covered in that pickling salt. And here it is. It's got all the salt in it, and we're going to let it sit for 2 to 3 hours. Okay, got these ready to go. They're all washed, and I've put them in my water bath canner. It's actually a tortilla maker, but it works just the same. Make sure that you put some sort of trivet or some sort of base in there so that the glass is not sitting directly on the burner. Also, while you're washing them, make sure that you check the edges and just inspect the jar completely. Make sure there's no cracks, chips, or anything like that, because you will have trouble sealing. So we're going to get these guys boiling. Once I come to a rolling boil, I time it for 10 minutes, and then these jars are sterilized. Okay, now after you let the vegetables sit for 2 to 3 hours, you're going to put them in a colander, drain them off, and then you're going to rinse them in cold water. And I'll get all that done. I'm having to do it in shifts just because I had so many vegetables. So as soon as I get that done, I will bring you back. Okay, got them all rinsed, and so now while we're making the brine, we're just going to try to squeeze out as much more water as we can. So we're going to put a plate on top of that. I'm going to put some cans and just let it sit there for a little while I'm making the brine. Okay, so now we're going to make our brine. So our brine consists of 1 cup of white sugar, and then we're going to go ahead, and because I only have one hand, I'm going to have to turn this off. We're going to do 1 3/4 teaspoon of turmeric, and 2 teaspoons of yellow mustard seed. And the recipe can also call for 2 teaspoons of celery seed. I'm not much of a celery seed fan, but I do like hot stuff. So in place of that, I'm going to put about 1 teaspoon of the crushed red pepper. So let me get all this put together. And also I'm adding in 2 cups of white distilled vinegar and 2 cups of apple cider vinegar. I will put this recipe at the bottom so you have it. Okay, we've got our brine ready to go. What I'm going to do is bring this to a rolling boil, and then I'm going to add in my squash and onions. So once I get that done, I'll bring you back. Okay, wanted to kind of bring you into what I'm doing right now. Here are my jars being sterilized. I still have another 5 minutes on those guys. Here are the lids and rings, and we will have them just kind of simmering. Used to a long time ago, you had to boil them and sterilize them like this, but you don't have to do that anymore because they found that it degraded the rubber on the seal. So we just kind of keep those simmering. And then here are my tools, I guess, of canning. You've got your this is your handy dandy little jar picker, your magnet that you use for the lids, and this helps so much. So when you're trying to put stuff into a small mouth jar, it's so much nicer. So, and here is our brine. It's coming up to a rolling boil right now. Well, I'll tell you what, the stuff will clear out your sinuses. It smells so good, but it does have a lot of vinegar in it. So as soon as I get the squash and the onions in here, I'm going to bring it back up to a rolling boil, and I'll bring you back at that time. Okay, so we've added our squash and our onions into the brine, and now we're just going to bring this back to a rolling boil. Okay, after we brought it to a rolling boil, I pulled it off the stove and just kind of letting it cool just a little bit, and then we are going to put into the food processor, and then we can start canning. I'll bring you back. Okay, here is our the results of all of the chopping and the boiling, and so we're ready now to can. So what I'm going to do is try to do this one-handed and at least do 1 jar so you can see how I do it. And then I'll show when we put them all in the water bath. Don't look at me.
Okay, now it's going.
Okay, what we're going to do now is I always try to get 2 jars out so I can put my funnel somewhere else when I'm finished with it. So what we got here is, this is some vinegar, and what we're going to do is after we fill this jar, we're going to get to about a 1/2 inch to seal it. We're going to leave about a 1/2 inch open, and then we're going to wipe the rim off with vinegar. So I'm going to do one of these real quick just to show you how it's done. And what I'm making sure is I had my jars sterilized, so they were hot. This mixture is hot. You never want to put hot and cold together. You could crack your jars very easily. So, okay. So we're about, I could probably put just a smidge more in there to get up to a 1/2 inch. Now, one very important thing is you're going to have air bubbles in there, and you don't want those to cause it to expand too much. So you just go down in here. I have my special little tool, but I can't find it, so I'm using a knife that I sterilized. So just go down on the sides. Okay. Then I'm going to wipe off my lid. Make sure that's really, because that's where your seal is going to be. And I'm going to get my handy dandy little cat catcher. Put that there. And you're going to put this on finger tight. And what that means is you're just going to tighten it like that. You're not going to bear down on it. And that's your first one done. Now, to keep it warm, I'm going to go ahead and put it in the water with all the other jars, empty jars. And then just keep going with that procedure until I get them all filled up. I will bring you back when we get started with the rest of it. One thing I forgot to tell you is the leftover vinegar that you had, pour that in here. That will keep your jars from getting cloudy. So just a little tip. Okay, everyone, the 10 minutes is up, and I've turned off the heat. I'm just going to give it a few seconds to chill out, and then I'm going to go ahead and place it on a towel. Now, you want to make sure that it's more important in the winter that you're not bringing them out of this really hot water into a drafty, cold environment. You could have a glass break. So, of course, my house is so incredibly hot right now. Excuse me, my grandson's talking. And so I'm not real concerned about it. But I'm going to go ahead and pull these out and put them on the towel. And here they are. I'm just going to wait on them to seal. Once they start evening out with the temperature in the room, this little thingy bopper right there will suck in, and that means that it has sealed and you are good to keep it for shelf life. You don't have to worry about keeping it in the refrigerator until it's opened, of course. Now, it's the best sound in the world when those things start popping. So here is our squash relish. If you have way too much squash like I did and you got tired of freezing it, I just pulled it out, started chopping it up, and made relish out of it. So yay for hot dogs. Please, if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe to our channel. And I'm going to be bringing some more canning as well as some baking stuff too, along with the goats and the garden and everything. So everybody have a wonderful day, and we'll see you soon.